Welcome back. Fresh elections are going to be held in 4 municipalities in northern Kosovo. Well, last time around, these local elections were boycotted by Kosovo's ethnic Serb minority, but the vote went ahead, and the result was that ethnic Albanian mayors were voted into office in Serb-majority areas of the country. Well, that then led to clashes in which dozens of people, including NATO peacekeepers, were injured. Well, Pristina blames Serbia for this and accuses President Aleksandar Vučić of trying to destabilize Kosovo. Well, for more, we can speak now to the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Albin Kurti. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. Prime Minister, new elections are going to be held in these 4 northern municipalities of Kosovo. What's going to be different this next time around?
On 5th of November last year, main Serbian political party, the only one basically allowed to run by Belgrade in Kosovo, Serbian list, they abandoned our institutions. And then they boycotted the elections. Then they called for boycotting of elections by everyone else, did not allow anyone else to run. In spite of all this, we have extended elections for 4 months, postponed them, extended the time frame for registering of new Serbian political parties, but to no avail. All this situation is due to Belgrade's intrusion. And due to violent protests that we had both on 26th of May and 29th of May, first of all, we need a rule of law in place. I have mentioned 33 names in the parliament, 5 of which have been arrested. Another 28 are at large, which are part of these violent extremist, illegal organizations, fascist militia, who either have to go to Serbia or in prison. Only in that way we can have free, fair, democratic elections preceded by a free, fair, democratic campaign. One Serbian candidate who would for sure win in Leposavić stepped out from the campaign 2 days before elections because Belgrade threatened him, but probably also offered something to him. So we need, first of all, an open, fair campaign, and then free early elections, which I do not dispute, because the mayors which are there are after a very low turnout. But it's not their fault. They are fully legal, and we have to defend them, because we have to defend constitutionality and lawfulness in our country. I can foresee that these mayors are not going to finish their term, which is half term anyway, 2 years. So after some months, we could have early elections. But that's not the point. The point is rule of law. There should be no criminals around, no mobs who want to enter in these premises, and only then conditions will be ripe to have early elections.
OK, well, with hindsight, do you think it was right to have held those municipal elections and to install those mayors in that Serbian majority part of Kosovo, given the turnout was only 3.5%, wasn't it, in some areas?
It is true that legitimacy, political legitimacy is weak, but then others have no political legitimacy. The legitimacy of others is zero. And for example, today in these 3 northern municipalities, situation was generally peaceful and calm. Why? Because there was no order for violence from Belgrade. What for me is clear after these violent unrest in Kosovo is that few years back, the project of land swap, of territorial exchange between Kosovo and Serbia as euphemism for partitioning of Kosovo, few years back used to be a matter of dialogue. Now, because I'm no interlocutor to territorial ethno-nationalistic solutions, the project for partitioning Kosovo has become a violent one. But they failed first time in those indecent talks for partitioning Kosovo. They're going to fail again. So these mayors will not be re-elected. I do not know who from 38 mayors in Kosovo will be re-elected, but for sure these 4 in the north will not. But you cannot get into power in Kosovo without free democratic elections, not with shock bombs, hand grenades, and with bullets.
When are these elections going to take place then?
Well, these will take place after rule of law. We have to put in place some rule of law, because there is no free and fair democratic elections without lawfulness. This is my insistence, and I don't want to go from one failure to another. Again, Serbian list left the institutions because they have miscalculated. They thought that our system will collapse in the north. It did not. We replaced 500 policemen in the north with other policemen, and now we have these mayors who are mayors with small m, not with big M. I instructed all these mayors, no triumphalism. But my Minister of Finance needs to give money to these municipalities, and these municipalities must have mayors. That's why these mayors are there in place. And if not at the buildings of the municipalities, official public buildings, where else? And if these buildings are not for mayors, what for they are there? Therefore, I want to engage constructively, but at the same time, our constitution, our legal order, our democracy of our republic cannot be compromised. We are the most democratic country in Western Balkans 6, and at the same time, our police is the most professional one in our entire region, is Western oriented and Western trained.
Sure, and let's also hand it to those NATO peacekeepers for showing the restraint they did, and luckily no civilians were killed in those flashpoint areas. I mean, your allies agree with what you're saying. They say dialogue and diplomacy are what's needed, but they don't want a quick fix. They want a constructive relationship crafted between Pristina and all your neighbours. Are you prepared to sit down and turn the page with the Serbian president, Aleksandar Vučić?
Together with Serbia, we have adopted and endorsed Basic Treaty, which is a great achievement of European Union, who was mediating and facilitating. On 9th of February, this Basic Treaty became part of the conclusions of European Council. On 27th of February, we endorsed it and adopted it. 18th of March, we have added implementation annex. What we need now is implementation. So many people, when they see this unrest, they think that there is no agreement. Actually, there is agreement, but there is no implementation because of Belgrade. This Belgrade obstruction to Basic Treaty, for me, it's clear that has to do with the centerpiece of Basic Treaty, which is mutual de facto recognition. We need good neighborly relations, but we cannot go prior to 2008 when we declared independence, or prior to 1999 when we achieved liberation. We have to move forward. We have to look towards the future, and in the future we have European Union and NATO.
Yeah, and so does Serbia, presumably. And of course, this type of conflict does jeopardize, doesn't it, both of your aspirations for European integration. Do you think Serbia, which of course doesn't hide its sympathy for Moscow, particularly with regard to the conflict in Ukraine, do you think Serbia should be allowed to join the EU?
20 years ago, support in Serbia for European Union among population was 75%. Now it dropped to 35%. And the most admired politician in Serbia is not their president or prime minister or any kind of celebrity. It's despotic President Vladimir Putin. And I think that behaving too well with the autocrats like President Vučić made his behavior worse. And now we are getting the harvest of what we have been sowing for so many years by tolerating autocratic behavior of Belgrade, who, of course, aligned itself with Moscow, because both of them have cultural and historical ties on one hand, but also joint military activities and energy. Gazprom owns 56% of oil industry of Serbia and 51% of the largest gas storage in Southeast Europe, which happens to be in Banatski Dvor in Vojvodina in Serbia. So there are so many links between Serbia and Russian Federation, and also they both hate the fact that Kosovo is a success story of both NATO intervention to stop Serbian genocide in spring 1999 and having democratic and economic progress going hand in hand. Kosovo had 7% of economic growth in these last 2 years. Tax revenues increased by 2/3 without changing fiscal policy. Exports doubled. FDI as well, according to Transparency International, Reporters Without Borders, Freedom House, VDEM. We are at the top of the Western Balkans in terms of fighting corruption, political liberties, civil rights, then freedom of the press and electoral democracy. So we are a success story, but Belgrade and Moscow do not like this.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Prime Minister of Kosovo, Albin Kurti. Thank you very much indeed.